I think I'll have to. Well, thank you all for being here. We've taken up a major piece of legislation, obviously, here this afternoon. It was a priority for many members of the General Assembly this session. I'm very pleased with the vote, the vote, and it ensures that Georgia will move now into the 21st century in terms of our election laws and our technology. I think Georgians can be very proud and can feel secure about the elections process with the action that's been taken here by this House today. And I want to thank a group of people that have worked extremely hard for many weeks and months, beginning with the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Chairman Barry Fleming. He chaired the SAFE Commission that Secretary Kemp appointed last year, and I want to thank him for just a tremendous job. Secretary Raffensperger has been a great partner, and I want to thank him for his hard work. Chairman Ed Reinders, who chairs the Governmental Affairs Committee, shepherded this bill through the committee in a very fair, thorough way, gave everybody a hearing, and really drilled down into the details on the bill, and I want to commend him. Our Majority Caucus Whip, Trey Kelly, the Speaker Pro Tem's here, the Majority Leader, so many other members, Representative Bonnie Rich, that played a great role in making sure this day got here. And so with that, I'm going to ask Barry Fleming and Secretary Raffensperger, if they would, to step up here and help me answer any questions that you might have.
Mr. Speaker, is there any part of you that is troubled by the partisan nature of the debate? And I realize I'm inviting you to blame Democrats, but it seems to be on both sides.
Well, I'm not blaming any party. It is disturbing that you know, you would think that if all of our goal is to get safe, secure elections and to have integrity in the elections process, that it shouldn't be that complicated. It shouldn't be that divisive. But we saw a little bit different out there today, and I think that's unfortunate. I hope we can put that behind us and move on. We've got a lot of other work to do. But it is a little concerning. Any others from me?
Speaker, can you talk about a lot of the focus is on the voting machines, but can you talk about some of the other provisions in the bill do you think will be important down the road?
Well, I'm going to let them deal with that because they've been into the details a lot more than me. I think the voting machines were a very important part of it. You know, I sat there and listened to the debate today, and it occurred to me that there's a lot of concern and a lot of people kind of wanting to question the use of technology in voting, and it occurred to me that, you know, here in the 21st century, you know, we rely on computers to tell us what's wrong with our cars when they go defective. We rely on computers to guide the hands of surgeons when they perform surgery on our bodies. And every time we get on an airplane, I think we basically turn our lives over to computers to fly the plane. So I think if we can do all of those things, plus so many other things, then I think we can have confidence in the technology aspect of this.
Mr. Ralston, we're all familiar with how you say the ones that they represent are those who are disenfranchised when it comes to voting in the state of Georgia, and hearings were not allowed on the options that they were presented.
Well, the hearings considered all of the options, as I understand, I'm a little puzzled at the disenfranchisement argument when voter participation was higher last November. I think that at certainly in any midterm election, if not an election period, I mean, the participation rate was out the roof compared to what it had been in the past, and so you know, the data just doesn't support that claim, frankly. Okay, Gentlemen, questions for these two experts?
Mr. Secretary, can you talk about your office ballots, the cost of them versus the...
Good afternoon. Yes, we put out that email this morning that hand-marked paper ballots over a 10-year period would be on the low side over 200 million up to a high side of 250 million. People were talking about paper ballots, and if you want to just look at it from an economic issues, we wanted to make sure that that information was out there. That initially, as was stated on the floor today, a machine-marked ballot marking device does cost higher on initial cost, but over a 10-year run. And if you actually run it out to 3 presidential cycles, which would be a 12-year run, then the costs really are quite comparable. If anything, you could make the case that a ballot marking device was cheaper. But at the end of the day, you look at the Safe Commission, you also look at the work that this body had done. What they felt is that the best solution for Georgia to make sure we really captured voters.
Yeah, Secretary Raffensperger, why not ask Chairman Reinders to request the fiscal note, which is typically the process for estimating the cost that a bill might impose on the state?
I agree. That would go to Chairman.
I would ask him to.
Yeah. Anybody could have asked Chairman Reinders to ask for a fiscal note. They chose not to. They chose to wait till they got to the floor and claimed that they couldn't get one. That's disingenuous. Also, the cost of this is going to be covered because we have $150 million in the state budget this year. For whatever type system we go with, we think that'll cover it. So this idea of not asking for a physical note is just not accurate.
Secretary Raffensperger, during the campaign, you said that you were here for all Georgians, that you would make sure that there would be no wrongdoings when it comes to elections and things of that nature. With the vote today, how confident are you that you can say to the people that you are doing just what you said you would do?
Well, I wish I could change Georgia, and I wish I could change the nation, that it wasn't so polarized, but I deal with the facts on the ground, and unfortunately, the nation is polarized right now as it relates to some of the elections. But my goal as Secretary of State is to make sure that we get elections right, that we make sure that we count the vote, we get it right. And I believe that with the machines that we've passed in legislation today, with an optical scanner, it's going to allow us to do physical recounts and also allow us for the first time to do risk limiting audits. And if you read research, what you'll find, no matter how you do that with a ballot marking device or hand-marked paper ballot, you can then do with an optical scanner and having a physical ballot, you better do risk limiting audits. At the end of the day, when you do an audit, then you'll be able to say, yes, this person won, this person lost. And when that person loses, then I think they need to get off the stage. Thank you.
Secretary, I want to ask you a question. Since you ultimately will have the say in which machines are chosen, do you have a preference yet on those that have the barcode or those that just use the optical scanner?
The fact of the matter are there's probably 5 or 6 different companies that offer systems with a ballot marking device. And if the legislation was so specific that just precluded certain barcodes, then what you could effectively do is reduce the number of folks that could submit proposals. And I think we want to be able to have that in the RFP process to get a lot of folks that are submitting proposals. We can look at the merits and look at the cost and make the best decision for all Georgia voters. And so at this present time, I don't want to limit competition. I come out of the construction industry, which is very competitive. General contractors work off a 2 to 3% margin. So it's kind of like the food industry, working off those very tight margins. I want to make sure that Georgians get the best possible value for what we're going to buy that's going to last us for the next 10 to 12 years.
Secretary Raffensperger, you said in an interview with Johnny the other day that people who believe in hand-marked paper ballots are outside of the mainstream, yet they've been very forceful in this hearing process and things like that. How do you plan on reconciling all of those people that have, and Democrats that have views about hand-marked paper ballots as you move forward with this process to make sure that they feel heard and included in Georgia's voting system?
Well, first off, there was a poll that was issued by Landmark a few weeks ago, and they showed that over 70–75% of all Georgians, and that was both Republicans and Democrats, believed that they wanted to have a ballot marking device. And so that's 75%, 3/4 of the folks believe that ballot marking device makes the most sense for them. And so when I talked about being out of the mainstream, when you have an election that someone gets 75% and the other person gets 25%, Now, that's a pretty strong victory. And so it's not that they have been heard. And that's why the chairman and both the subcommittee and of the general committee of government affairs were very generous and let everyone have that input. But at the end of the day, this is a democratic process, and you have to count noses, you have to count votes. And they just didn't have the votes. And there's 75% of the people that are the average voters believe that ballot marking device is the way to go. Over 90% of all your county election supervisors, and that's these folks that are right around here, over 95% of them believe that ballot marking devices are the way to go. These are the folks that do the hard work, counting, organizing the election, doing the hard work of running that election during your election day. And when they believe that, the people believe that, and then scientific folks say both are good systems, then I think at the end of the day, the General Assembly made the right decision.
Let's do two more. Okay.
Mr. Secretary, this bill is moving very quickly through the House, so it's now moving over to the Senate. Is there a need for it to get passed quickly so that we can have it up and running in time for municipal elections in November and whenever the presidential primary is next year? Is there a need to move it quickly?
There's not a need to move it for the 2019 cycle, but what I've said, this would be very optimistic. But if it moves fast enough through the system here, and we could actually then get our RFP out, get some machines secured, I would love to run some test cities and run the fall municipal elections in 2019 with these new machines. What that does is lets our office really get up to speed and maybe work out any kinks in our process, and then we'd be ready for the 2020 presidential and the 2020 fall election.
Last one.
Thank you.
I would just point out, Mark, that as to moving quickly, that today was day 22. And we're only over a week away from crossover day. So I don't think it's a fair characterization to say it is moving quickly. I don't know what speed the Senate will put it on, but I have every confidence in the manner that we have deliberated in a careful way.
Thank you all.
Good job.